with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. It is a Monday 6-game main slate starting at 7:30 Eastern. Late night hammer tonight, 10:30 with the Thunder and Lakers on the main slate. Sir James is on your playbook. Had that out earlier for you all here. Pretty fun slate of games here. Some nice matchups to look forward to. James, my buddy, how are we doing?
Well, it's a 6-game main slate if you're playing on DraftKings.
Truth. Well, it was a DraftKings show for the most part. You know, we do.
It's a 4-game main slate if you're playing on FanDuel because
they took out the champions. You know,
we cannot have nice things. Now we get late swap back on DraftKings. We get the 2 late games dropped on FanDuel.
Right.
It's just,
right.
There's no continuity. There's just constant fluidity. Doing well, good slate overall. I see we have a comment about the slate being tricky. I didn't find it that tricky. I also am like with the field where I just plugged and played as many Washington, Utah guys as I can, and that's kind of been true based on ownership all day. Because that game is just heavily rostered. But it's a fun slate. I never thought I'd be so excited for Washington, Utah in March, but here we are. I'm super excited for Washington, Utah in March, and that will be the number one watch game on League Pass for me tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be given the exposure we have. You and I, obviously, in DFS. I read you off a little same game parlay I took advantage of with the 33% payout boost that DraftKings is offering here today on those. So getting some looks here. Got almost like a 4-1 same game parlay payout on this Utah Washington game here. When we're looking at totals for tonight, Memphis, Brooklyn, the Nets are giving 10. It's a gross 206 game total there. From a maybe future playoff standpoint, Clippers, Bucks are given 3.5. They were giving 5, now down to 3.5. That's a 224.5 game total. Portland, Minnesota giving 14, 210 total there. Wizards, Jazz, as we've talked about. Utah giving 5.5, 241 total in that one. And then if you're on DraftKings, you have Chicago, Sacramento. Kings giving 7. De'Aaron Fox, we think, is going to play here tonight. 228.5 total there. Then Thunder, Lakers getting a 1.5 after giving a point this morning. 238 total there. You and I talked about that when we did the preview show. I was like, man, the Thunder just constantly getting disrespected at times here. Now they're a point dog. Now they're a 1.5 favorite. That feels like a little bit more of the way to go there.
New number 1 team in the West.
Yeah,
is opened as a dog.
As a dog, yeah, to LeBron James, basically. Just
there's some interesting things. Obviously, the Bucks line moving a little bit because Giannis is questionable. So, this is the first time Giannis has been questionable in a while. Like, he's been listed probable essentially every slate, but the questionable tag obviously changes a few things. Utah, Washington is the creme de la creme. You say we think De'Aaron Fox, dude. De'Aaron Fox. I was gonna tweet out the shit, here we go again GTA meme, because the last 2 games De'Aaron Fox has gone through shoot around and it seemed like he was gonna play, and then like at roster lock he was ruled out. So like now we have a 10 p.m. game with De'Aaron Fox involved. So you're right, we think he's gonna play, but here we go again with De'Aaron Fox potentially not playing. So interesting for sure. See some comments about the Blazers injuries. We'll get to those because there was some downgrades and there's just a bunch of injuries in general there in Portland. The Clippers Bucks is probably the best real life game, as you mentioned.
And it is also the game for our Better Edge Pick'em contest here today. You see the QR code there on the screen and the URL. You can scan that QR code or go to fantasyalarm.com/pick'em. You can join our NBA Pick'em contest there over on Better Edge. You pick 6 props or total spreads. Whoever has the most correct answers will have the opportunity to win some money. It is $3 to enter, but they're giving you $10 free just simply to sign up. No deposit needed. So you can basically play for free here tonight just by scanning the QR code or going to fantasyalarm.com/pick'em here and signing up with Better Edge. Again, we do these pick'em contests each and every day. James and myself are in those pick'em contests. Howard Bender was in one on Friday with us as well. He joins these periodically, so you can come beat us, take our money, and win some prizes there over on Better Edge. Scan the QR code, go to fantasyalarm.com/pick'em. Get $10 free simply by signing up and confirming your account. You don't need to put any credit card information down just to get the $10. And then you can use that money to join our NBA Pick'em contest each and every day. So again, don't miss out. We're going to keep hammering this, guys. We want you in there with all of us. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting our show. If you haven't already, toss a like down today. It's a free way to support us. I see about 35 of you in here right now. We should have 35 likes. You guys are tuning in, just hit that like button. Simple, easy. Sports channel helps us boost up those YouTube algorithms, and it really helps us get out there and spread the word of what we're doing here over at Fantasy Alarm. All that said here, James, let's get into it. Point guard position. You mentioned that Giannis is a true questionable, which means SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on DraftKings, is our current highest priced player on the slate that is at least without an injury tag. He's got the Lakers here at 10-7, and that's a big drop-off in pricing. Damian Lillard would obviously be super popular if Giannis ends up being ruled out. He and Harden are 89 and 87. De'Aaron Fox news stands to be at 85. Great price point for Fox should he be active. And then Anthony Simons at 8K. Those are your 5 top-priced point guards on the slate.
Yeah, so SGA picked up his 8th straight game of scoring 30-plus points last night. Also went for 70 en route to a win that, again, vaulted them to first place in the West. So I have no problem getting SGA at 10-7. I think there's enough value everywhere, i.e. Utah, right?
Yeah.
Where you can get to SGA if you want. I don't know if you need to today, especially just the nature of that game. Washington, Utah is like so fair and balanced. I don't know if you need to, but obviously getting 70 in your lineup isn't a bad thing. And if you're worried about the back-to-back, we just saw him play a back-to-back last week, and he played heavy minutes on the front end against the Clippers. And then 30 minutes the next night where they won by 30, he had 30, and all was good in the world. So not necessarily worried about SGA ever on second leg of back-to-back. So you shouldn't be either. The rest of the tier is interesting. Sorry, you seem like...
No, I was going to agree with you. I was going to say, yeah, man, dude, he's a machine, right? Points are certainly there. And the Lakers matchup's a good one for him here as well. You're not too worried about Russell or Dinwiddie, Reeves, defense, whoever ends up being on SGA. He's going to get, that he's going to get his points. You and I talked about that the other day. We were kind of monitoring his live point prop there against San Antonio. He had like 11 or 12 going into halftime. And Vegas is still like, 30 and a half. Like he's just gonna come out in the second half and score 20, and he almost got there. So I'm fully on board with you. But like I said, it's a big price drop off after that. Where are you going with your next targeted point guard on this slate? We were very high on Keyonte George, and now all of a sudden he is a midday downgrade.
Yeah, the next tier is like not really where I'm sitting. Like you can obviously play Harden in tournaments, but for what it's worth, Milwaukee 4th in defensive ratings since Doc Rivers has joined the team. So there has obviously been an emphasis there. That coincides with Patrick Beverley being traded there, but also they've changed, again, their defensive philosophies. They put Brook Lopez back in drop coverage where he's most comfortable, and it's worked. So you can get to Harden in tournaments. Obviously, as you mentioned, Lillard in tournaments and all formats if Giannis is out. I'm also a little worried about that team if there's no Giannis, because we already know there's no Middleton as well.
Mm-hmm.
Clippers are basically full strength from what we can see based on their injury report, and Russell Westbrook is the only missing link. So Lillard 87 is fine. You could definitely get to De'Aaron Fox. We know the Bulls allow a lot of 3-point made field goals. He has some pretty high volume made 3-point games this year. Hasn't been the best 3-point shooter, but you want to get the Fox, that's fine. Simons in tournaments, really tough matchup for him. I wrote up Kobe White in today's playbook. The volume hasn't gone away. He just isn't making shots.
Yeah.
At least there was a step in the right direction the last time out against Milwaukee, right? 7 for 14 from the floor, 22 actual points. He's still been great peripherally. He just hasn't made shots. but he's a 45% shooter from on the year and a 38% 3-point shooter on the year. The Kings allow the 8th most 3-point made field goals per game this year. And we know Kobe White's volume from 3 is insane. I mean, he has so many double-digit 3-point attempt games. So I like Kobe White at 73, big pace-up spot for the Bulls. You mentioned the Keyonte George thing, perfectly fine getting there if he's in the lineup. The minutes are great for Keyonte George. He played 43 minutes in his last game against Miami. He's playing 30 plus every single night. The fantasy production has really skyrocketed. He's getting way more comfortable. He's also been the number one player in usage when all these guys are out. Larry Markkinen, all the trades they've made, and Walker Kessler. He's number one in fantasy points per minute, or number 2 in fantasy points per minute behind John Collins, 1 in usage rate, and that's ahead of Sexton. That's ahead of Jordan Clarkson. So if Keyonte George is in, no problem getting to Tyus Jones. He's like, I think there's like 5 Washington mid-tier plays, right? You can get to.
Yeah, the assist numbers for Tyus tonight, if you were doing some player props, like the over assist feels like a good bet here.
Yeah, he's been amazing as a point guard for them, right? Like he has been great. It's just when you get the scoring is when you get the upside. He hasn't really scored the basketball a lot. I think that in large part has to do with Kuzma, large part has to do with Denny's, resurgence, has to do with Jordan Poole off the bench now, like as a primary scorer. So I'm okay getting to Tyus Jones. And then we dip into like this next tier of guys that I'm highly interested in. Jordan Poole, Dennis Schroeder, Jordan Goodwin. I like all 3 of those guys.
Yeah, for sure. No arguments here. Tyus here projected for 10.5 assists in Vegas right now. So over under the 10.5 gives you a good idea where maybe the floor might be there for him. Going down to some value. I mean, obviously you mentioned Goodwin. Is there anybody else? I mean, are all the Memphis plays in play here tonight against Brooklyn?
I mean, Jordan Poole's 6K. We could talk about him now, or shooting guard. I think he's an elite.
We talked about the shooting guard on the show this morning.
Okay.
We talk about him now because Andrew says it's a warm day, but he's not jumping in the pool.
It is a beautiful. Andrew, I've been outside all day. 73 degrees here. Beautiful sun. Amazing. Window's been open all day. I am on the other side of the fence there. I am playing Jordan Poole tonight in tournaments. I do think this is a great spot for him. Really good pace, really bad defense in Utah. So I think Jordan Poole in tournaments makes a lot of sense. I think Dennis Schroeder makes a lot of sense too. We confirmed no Ben Simmons in the middle of today. So now it's just status quo, right? For Brooklyn. It's the same exact team. No Cam Thomas, no Ben Simmons. Schroeder's been amazing the last 2 games now. Granted, both were against Atlanta, right? Same matchup twice. So 45, 33 fantasy points. He missed all his shots in that second Atlanta game and like had a big second half to get us there, but still under 6K. Dennis Schroeder is too cheap. Last 4 games, he's had 2 usage rate games over 28%, 25 plus fantasy points in 4 straight.
Sure.
And then the Goodwin point. I mean, dude, like we didn't mention this on the show, and I think you and I just glossed over it, but Zaire Williams is out tonight, and Luke Kennard played 28 minutes the other night. I think Luke Kennard is just like the easy plug for Zaire Williams at shooting guard in this spot. They don't have any other point guards. Like it's
they got Concher, right? So
they got Concher. So like 30 plus minutes for a 4th straight game, essentially a 5th straight game. He's had in the last 5 games he's played 29 minutes. He's had 27 plus fantasy points. Dude, if he ever makes a shot, he'll literally break the slate, right? Like he just needs to make some shots. I'm not saying shooting 38% of the year. He's not exactly like out there being efficient, but if he ever does make a shot, it's going to be a big crooked number for Goodwin. So I definitely have some interest. Much lower ownership than has been previously. And speaking of ownership, uploading it, our latest run to fantasyalarm.com right now.
Any other value guards for you here this night at point guard?
I think that there is a few names to keep our eyes on. I'm okay getting to someone like Dennis Smith at 4,100. Played 20 plus minutes in 3 straight games. Been super productive, 19, 20, 22 fantasy points. If Dennis Smith makes some shots, he could have 30 plus fantasy point upside. And John, keep an eye out for this name, okay? Ashton Hagans of Portland. And this, we can circle back to the question we got to that OS asked us. Third question of the slate, or third question of the stream. Blazers injuries beneficiaries. So midday downgrade to Tumani Kamara today. Matisse Thybulle's on the injury report with questionable. Ayton's questionable. Jeremy Grant's doubtful. That is four guys that potentially could play 30 minutes for them. They started Delano Banton in the second half the other day. He got in massive foul trouble. Hagans played like the final 20 minutes of the game. He basically subbed in the second half and then never subbed out again.
Yeah.
He was great. I think if they're missing Thibault, if they're missing Tumani Kamara, why not? Like, what does Portland even have that would compete with Hagans? 33 minutes again. They could play Simons if they don't want to play Hagans at the 2. They could play Anthony Simons at the 2. He's done it. He did it his whole career with Dame. So Hagan's been 23 and 35 fantasy points. Again, terrible spot against Minnesota. Might play mid to high 20 minutes anyway because this game's a blowout. Sure. I think that's someone to keep our eye on. I'm not suggesting like plug and play. Keon Ellis started the other day. That's
why I clicked on it. I don't see how many minutes he ended up getting. 18 there. What do you make of Patrick Beverley getting 10% ownership here tonight?
I think
3,300. He's paying it off the last 3 games.
Yeah, I think he's fine. It's a revenge narrative, and
just the 10% for me, I think, is what kind of stood out, right? Small slate, $3,300, and people are kind of plugging him in to some lineups here. He's obviously been really good at filling out the stat sheet in the limited amount of time he gets on the floor here. But maybe they need him. Maybe they want him out there for Westbrook in his matchups that he's had with Westbrook or Harden.
Westbrook's out.
Okay, well then Harden then in the matchup that he has there. So,
I think that also could be just people not wanting to play 35% Bryce Sensabaugh or 35% Talon Horton Tucker as well because.
Sure. Well, let's get to shooting guard because we'll talk THT in a moment. He's the highest rostered player on the slate. So, top, Anthony Edwards, Paul George, Cal Bridges, Anthony Simons here, top 4 guys.
Yeah, Edwards in tournaments is fine. Same thing for Paul George. Tournaments don't really have like a lot of interest in either in anything in like much capacity other than tournaments. I like Mikal Bridges. The usage rate and the fantasy points per minute are really top shelf with Cam Thomas and Ben Simmons off the floor. So sure. I like Mikal more than I like anyone else at the top tier.
Yeah, he's really starting to come through here. If Keyonte George doesn't get ruled out, are there going to be higher roster guys than Sexton and Clarkson here?
No,
right?
No. Utah. Dude, they're already. Look at the ownership on them already. What is it going to be? What is it going to look like when Keyonte George is ruled out? Then we got to start. Unfortunately, we probably have to circle back. We don't have to circle back. Chris Dunn's 3,800. He would probably start in that scenario, right? Where there's no Keyonte George. But Sexton, really good usage rate player, really good fantasy point per minute player. And Clarkson's actually been really disappointing with Larry Markkinen off the floor this year. Kind of a couple of bad games for him. Obviously, 2 for 10 shooting. He can fill it up in a hurry, but coming off 2 bad games might be a good time to jump back in on Jordan Clarkson. He's like the lowest owned of all of them. So anytime you can get like Sexton, Keyonte George are clearly going to be more of a priority than them of Clarkson, but Clarkson shooting guard small forward eligibility. Don't sleep on that. That's a nice little wrinkle that we haven't had for him this year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Getting that dual positional eligibility. You mentioned the same thing last night with Monk too, right? All of a sudden gets small forward eligibility there. If there ends up being no De'Aaron Fox, you'll know after the fact with some value there. You mentioned Poole. Io, any thoughts there for him at 57?
Getting a lot of attention. He's fine. I think he's a nice, safe cash game play. Caruso's questionable, so there's obviously just 40 minutes in Io's future if Caruso doesn't play. So No problem getting there in some cash games and tournaments for that matter too.
With no Westbrook, obviously he had been coming off the bench, but you got Norm and Man both here at 51 and 5K. Any looks for you them against Milwaukee?
Of the two, it would be Norm, but not a lot of interest.
Okay. Value shooting guards for you again. Talon Horton Tucker, $3,600. Currently projected to be the highest rostered player on the slate. 20 minutes last time out against Miami, 1 of 7 shooting, not great, but last couple of games he just continues to show his ability to fill out the stat sheet for you. 18 and 24. What are your thoughts here on THT, and do you have him in your lineups tonight?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a case to be made for THT. You and I had talked about it on the show this morning. Like, he's a good fantasy point per minute guy at a very cheap price tag who just hasn't been in the rotation, right? Like,
Right.
anytime he's essentially been in the rotation, he's been a good fantasy producer. We've also just haven't gotten him this cheap while he's in the rotation. So, like, I think that's the key. If Keyonte George plays, Keyonte George, Colin Sexton, John Collins, Taylor Hendricks, right? That's your 4 of the 5. And then it's a case of half the field thinks it's Talon Horton Tucker, half the field thinks it's Bryce Sensabaugh, and then probably the other.
And it could be one of them, and the other one plays more minutes anyways.
Right. So I think that there's a case to be made for THT starting. We saw it earlier in the year, right?
If he starts, he has legitimate 10x potential tonight.
Yeah, if he'll be the highest roster. Like, he's highest rostered by like percentage points tonight.
Yeah.
Like, it's 3% to Sexton and to Kuzma, right? If he's starting, he's 40% higher than everybody else. Like, in single entry, he'll be 85% because he's $3,600 starting shooting guard small forward who we've seen double and score like 30 in a game in previous iterations, but he had 25 in a game this year, right? So 27 in a game this year, 19 and 11 in a game. Like, this is a guy who has just been relegated to the bench, and if he's in a prominent role, he's not a $3,600 player. It's just, can we trust it just because Lauri Markkanen's out? Now, like, Clarkson was out last game, he was in the rotation. Clarkson's back this game, or Clarkson was out 2 games, like, and now Markkanen's out. So can we trust that he's in the rotation? Like, if Talon Horton Tucker is getting anywhere close to 20 minutes, then I'm fine taking a shot at him at 3,600.
Yeah, we've seen him be over a point per minute player at his 16 to 15 minute role, right? So certainly can do that at $3,600 and the highest game total on the board here this evening. Moving on over to small forward, you got LeBron James, $9,700, Kawhi Leonard at $9K. Again, Anthony Edwards, Paul George, a couple of guys we've talked about already. DeMar DeRozan is $7,700. Just a couple of guys we haven't yet discussed here. Where are you with King James here this evening at 10:30? Seemingly, he's one of the few reasons why the Lakers were initially favorites in this game as it is. Think the Lakers can hang, and do you get the value out of LeBron at 97?
Yeah, man, I love LeBron. I'm confused. I said it on the show last night. Like, I get that he's listed questionable. I think it's more of a fake injury tag at this point. Like, they need to obviously play well ending down the stretch, and he's obviously taken that personally, as MJ would say. I mean, 37 minutes in 4 straight games. He's gone for 50 plus fantasy points in 5 straight and 7 of 8 overall. That's not something even Anthony Davis can say. And I said that in the playbook today. I wrote both of them up. I lean LeBron, small forward, power forward. He's been way more consistent for $400 cheaper than Davis. Davis has the ceiling, no doubt. Yeah. You said it the other day. He went for 70. But he also, in between the 70, has 4 40 fantasy point games. LeBron has 1 sub 40 or 50 fantasy point game in his last 8. Like,
yeah.
Is that a surprise coming out of the break that this is the version of LeBron that we're getting? Like, knowing that, like, this is the ramp up, like 37.
Well, that's what I agree with you. We talked about this the other day. Like, the All-Star break isn't the halfway point for the NBA. It's like you got 20 games to go to the playoffs start, and the Lakers are at the bottom of the play-in games here. So they need to win games. They need LeBron James to be healthy. They need him out there giving all the minutes he can handle. And you're right, 37, 37, 39, 37. You're going to get almost 40 minutes out of LeBron James. You're going to be getting some the ceiling for him is 70 or 80 fantasy points when he really gets it going. But do you think he can get it going against the Thunder? I guess is the real question.
Yeah, I mean, he's had good games against them this year. And obviously there's going to be Lou Dort defense looming. That's, duh. That's what they do. They put Dort on their opposing best player. But like for the Lakers, John, they're one game in the win column. Now they've played far more games than the Kings. They're one game in the win column from tying the Kings, who are not in the play-in game, right? They're in sixth. Like if the Kings lose tonight, now the Lakers are one game behind the Kings in the sixth spot.
Right.
Like, and they're the 10 seed right now. So like, this is going to continue. We're going to get all the minutes we can possibly handle, kind of like we saw in season tournament. LeBron, like he was playing 40 minutes a night. As much as we can like laugh about it, we saw it the whole in season tournament. Like teams were playing 40 minutes. LeBron was playing 40 minutes. That's what we're getting right now. As long as he's under 10K, I have no problem getting to him and talking about him as one of my priority spend ups. I know it's, again, tough spot, but he is catching OKC on the travel on a second leg going from Phoenix to LA last night. Like,
yep.
Lou Dort played over 30 minutes in that game, having to guard Kevin Durant, right? And now you flip. It's like, okay, from one all-time great to another all-time great. Like, Lou Dort, good luck. Hats off to you, sir. Like, so I do have a lot of interest in LeBron.
Big shoes to fill for Anthony Davis tonight after Yusuf Nurkic pulled down 31 rebounds.
Yes, yeah.
13 offensive rebounds, by the way, of that, which is just
and lost.
Just a wild scene out there. I mentioned Kawhi 9K. We're fine going there, and if Giannis is out, maybe we look elsewhere because that game, from a competitive standpoint, a little bit lower. DDR at 77. We have Jeremy Grant here, doubtful. So we'll talk about where the value might be with the Blazers. I think we're going to maybe peek at some Jabari Walker. I saw, did Tamani Kamara just get downgraded too?
Yes, he's out. He's downgraded.
He's downgraded, right. So, I mean, they're really hurting in that front court there for Portland here tonight. Vince Williams at 68, Denny at $6,600, and a few guys we've already touched upon down here in the middle as well. Because there is that looming value, are you just ignoring the mid-tier here at small forward?
No, I like Vince Williams. $6,800. He was bad in that first Portland game. Came back with vengeance. Played all the minutes. Was really good offensively. Was really good peripherally, which we've seen anytime he's been extended. So, $6,800 for Vince Williams. I'm perfectly fine getting two shooting guard small forward. No Jaren Jackson. No Zaire Williams. I mean, they're just obviously just depleted as a whole. So I'm good with Vince. And I actually like Denny more. Denny's really cheap on FanDuel for those playing over there. He's like $6,300. Anytime that's anytime you catch a price tag cheaper on FanDuel, I think it's kind of worth noting given the 10,000.
And it just has such weird ceilings, right? I mean,
yes. Well,
outside of this game, right? Where, I mean, okay.
Complete anomaly. Yeah.
It's good to see. Good to see he can score 40. The rebounding, a couple of games this year already, multiple double-digit rebounding games is great to see. We've been good with the assists. The scoring obviously has been inconsistent, but we know it's there. So something to watch for as we continue to game stack that one where, we know where the high rostered players are on this slate, right? And if Denny's a little bit of a pivot or a contrarian play there, could be something. Feel the same way about Corey Kispert in this one as well, from a scoring standpoint. When we're talking Portland, though, where are you looking to go?
When we're talking Portland specifically?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just kind of hard to, I would say, talk about in general because as it currently stands, nowhere. Like if everybody played, nowhere. I wouldn't really have much interest. But like if Kamara's out, if Thibel's out, if Grant presumably is out. I mean, I mentioned Ashton Hagens. That would be a place I'd go. Delano Banton might start. 4,700. Chris Murray played 39 minutes, but he was an absolute zero. But like, we know at least the minutes were there. It's hard. It's really hard to like want to talk Portland because like I don't think like if Kamara plays 5K, I'm not all that interested against Minnesota. And if he doesn't, like we've gone down the Matisse Thybulle route, 4K. How many times? Like, that's not any fun. I'd rather just take a shot on Utah value. So nowhere
Yeah, that's fine.
is
Like
nowhere.
I said, there's minutes to be had here, right? By some of these guys. So even in blowouts, we've kind of seen guys have big performances just because they had to play 40. So
Yeah.
kind of where I'm leaning with it.
It just
Any other small
depends. It
forward?
just depends on who's in and who's out. Like
Yeah.
it's just
8 o'clock start time, so we might get that information sooner rather than later. At least it's not like a typical 10 p.m. West Portland game. So
true.
I guess we'll have to kind of tune in there. Where else are you looking at small forward again? You were on the playbook today. That's out on Fantasy Alarm right now. People can check it out. What are your other core plays down here?
Not much. I did mention Bryce Sensabaugh.
Sure.
I'm a little indifferent about this because like he's been in the rotation and has done essentially nothing. But you look at it, he's a late first round pick this year, and there's obviously 2 other first round picks in their starting lineup right now from this year in Taylor Hendricks and Keyonte George. And you look at Bryce Sensabaugh's like college stats, 16 points, 5.5 rebounds, 48% shooter from the field, 40% shooter from 3. Like,
yeah,
I'm not saying that college scores translate to NBA, but it's not like he was like this freshman who just scored 6 points a game and like had this high ceiling because he was athletic. And no, he's a first round pick that played 1 year, scored a lot, and shot efficiently. And if he were to start small forward, power forward at $3,200 in quite literally the best matchup you can possibly have, because Washington's dead last in defense and number 1 in pace this year.
Yeah.
Then I have interest, right? I didn't. We talked about it last night. I think you were like, "Where's Sensabaugh?" And I was like, "Oh, he's been a 0."
Yeah.
And then you just look at it. You're in like, you were right to think about it because they're missing guys that are in his direct position, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And they've already made this swap to 2 rookies in their starting lineup. So why not see what you got in Sensabaugh? So I think there's definitely a case to be made for Bryce Sensabaugh at 3,200. If he's starting, all systems go. I'm gonna plug and play. I think there's a world where even if he does start, like Horton Tucker plays more than him, or Chris Dunn plays more than him. But if he's starting 3,200, he'll be super popular, and I'll be right there with the field.
Yeah, let's get to power forward here. Our guy 5Sol wants to know our thoughts on Cam Johnson today. Again, we talked about it with that Brooklyn team. The lineups are the same. Cam J, the last couple of games here, have been really locked in from long distance. 11 of 18 from 3, translating to 42 and 34 fantasy points over on DraftKings. He's $5,800. But, I mean, with the value we know that's on this slate, and maybe even more value in opening up, if it ends up being no Giannis here tonight, like, where are you with the power forward position this evening? Does Cam Johnson make your lineups?
Cam Johnson made my write-up. I do like Cam Johnson quite a bit. 1,500 is a good price. 30-plus minutes in back-to-back games. You don't know what that first game could have been if it stayed competitive. They won by 27. He's a really good shot maker for a down year. Hey, man, shooting 45%, 40% from 3. That's a pretty good down year in a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah.
And as long as he's going to continue to play 30 minutes, Memphis is obviously a depleted team. They're still competing pretty hard defensively and, relatively competitive. I do have interest in Cam Johnson. He's not like my favorite power forward, because I think power forward is a really good position. And my favorite power forward is also everyone else's favorite power forward. He's also the cover of one half of the cover of the playbook. And he was the cover of today's podcast. And Kyle Kuzma's here at 7,400, where it's like, well, yeah, I could play all these guys, but also I could play this guy who has 40-minute upside and has gone for 46 fantasy points plus in 4 straight games, and is leads them in usage, leads them in fantasy points per minute. So yeah, I like Cam Johnson. I like other guys as well at power forward. Like conversely, the other guy on the opposite, the power forward / center on the opposite side
So
of this
there's two
matchup.
guys at power forward on the other
Yeah,
side of that matchup we're looking at. Obviously, John Collins is down here at $6,500. And then if you wanted just to get into the value, Hendricks is, where is he?
49.
$4,900 for Taylor Hendricks. Both of those guys popular. Again, we're not meaning to be repetitive here. Everybody's playing Washington, Utah here today. So you're not too surprised to see the ownership with those guys. If you go check out my Underdog Fantasy Pick'em article, Taylor Hendricks is in there, like the over rebounds for him at 7.5 tonight. I'm just expecting him to play probably 30 minutes, given who's in and out of that lineup. No Lauri Markkanen, no Walker Kessler. For those who are just tuning in and don't already know, Hendricks has started 5 straight games as it is. So not really any reason to take him off the floor outside of foul trouble. Well, hopefully that doesn't come down the pipe, but some good value there on the Utah side.
Yeah, and to be fair, the Hendricks ownership of like all the Utah ownership is just not there. Like they have 6 players projected at 25% or more. Hendricks is at 14. He's 8th on the list. So there's a guy that we haven't talked about yet, 7th, and we'll talk about him at center. And so like Taylor Hendricks 14%. Like if you ever want leverage, he's starting. And when all those guys are off the floor, he's a 0.95 fantasy point per minute guy.
Yeah.
What if he plays 33 minutes tonight and he's essentially a fantasy point per minute? I mean, you get 33 fantasy points from that.
You called out. This is the night he gets his first double-double. So
I do think this is the night. I mean, he can shoot. I know hasn't necessarily been great at the pro level, but in 4 of his last 5 games, he's taken 4+ threes. Like he's not afraid to space the floor. And he's also a very good rebounder, good shot blocker. So I do think the double-double's coming. He closed last game without Clarkson, and that was the first time he's closed. Well, Clarkson's back, but Lauri Markkanen's not. So, the shoe fits for Taylor Hendricks tonight, 4,900. And obviously, John Collins he just has no competition at center. Like, I know Yurtsevens there, but they only played Yurtseven 15 minutes last game. They played John Collins as many minutes as he can handle.
Yeah.
Love Utah. Love the Utah power forwards here. Also love, shout out to Cam Johnson. Slight hat tip to Keegan Murray, John, who I've been teetering with all day to add to the playbook because the 3-point shooting at home and the 3-point shooting that the Bulls allow, because we've said it all year. The Bulls allow the most three. They now officially reclaim their throne. They allow the most threes per game made. And Keegan Murray up to a whopping 44% on his 3 balls at home. Yeah. He averages 18.5 actual points at home compared to 12.6 on the road. So kind of like a crazy discrepancy, but it is. GG Jackson, 5,100. I wrote him up today. A lot of usage rate for GG Jackson. And they played Lamar Stevens 19 minutes. We'll see if they elect to go with that small ball Santi Aldama center lineup. But if they do, well, then GG Jackson's in for a big night. In 8 of his last 11 games, GG Jackson's posted a 26% usage rate or better. All he's out there is he's chucking. My man is just out there chucking. So GG Jackson as well in tournaments. I did not write up Jabari Walker tonight, John.
Okay.
Not. I probably should.
Probably should. I mean, if Jeremy Grant's out and Tamai Kamara's out and Matisse Thybulle's out,
I wrote him up in the news section to keep your eyes out.
Okay.
With all the news, he was obviously he's probably gonna play big minutes regardless.
Yeah, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, you think if those guys are all out, he plays 35 minimum.
But that's the thing. If they're all out, he'll play all the minutes. If they're not, then I think. I mean, he was not playing a lot in that first Memphis game, and he closed. He played 6 first half minutes, and then just closed the game in a blowout. So we'll see. We'll see based on who's in and who's out.
Nico wants to know our thoughts on DFS here. 35 minutes the other night. Possible pivot here again. No Simmons, no Cam Thomas in that lineup.
Dude, he's a great defender who can make shots, and Kevin Ollie's playing him. So, he was in and out of the rotation before Kevin Ollie got there. And by that, I mean like low 20s, but he played 27 in a blowout and then 35 in a competitive game. Like there's no reason to think he doesn't get somewhere near that again.
I would agree with you. Let's move on over to the center position here. Sabonis, your top price guy at 10.5, then Anthony Davis at 10.1. We've talked a little bit on this morning about which one you'd pick. You decided on Sabonis. Has things held the same for you there?
Yes. 1.48 fantasy points per minute this year for Domantas Sabonis. And it's 1.37 without De'Aaron Fox, which I find interesting. It drops quite a bit, drops 0.11. But his usage rate goes up 4%. So like the balance a little bit, right? Like if he's gonna have the ball in his hands that much more, like there's obvious room for more fantasy points. Leads the league in triple doubles. The Bulls since February 1st have been far worse in defensive rating, 19th compared to 15th on the year. So I do still lean Sabonis. I'm not against Anthony Davis. I'm perfectly fine getting Anthony Davis. If you need to save money, if you think that there's a ceiling in this spot, sure. I mean,
he's averaging 13.3 rebounds per game in 3 games against the Thunder, averaging nearly 60 fantasy points. So
yeah, it's a fine spot. Like I'm not saying I'm like against Anthony Davis.
Brett just having a hell of a time here, I guess, against Anthony Davis.
And Wemby, he's not having a good time against either of those dudes. But yeah, if you want to get to AD or Sabonis, and there's always the caveat, like if LeBron's ankle isn't a fake questionable tag and it is a real one, and the tendonitis or tendopathy is at flaring up, and you get Davis alone, like there's obvious like 80 fantasy point upside in that case.
Where are you with Vucevic at $7,900? Any interest?
He's been good. Missed out on a double and 40 fantasy points. You get those like kind of stinkers every once in a while from Vooch.
He's been so consistent,
but he's been super, super consistent. And it's a good spot. We say this all the time. Sabonis started his career as a power forward, and it's just, with the way the NBA has transitioned, like he's just kind of like a good center.
He's not a good defender. He's a good offensive player. So
very good offensive player. So I'm okay with it. It's not a priority, but if that's where you end up, I'm perfectly fine.
Are you landing on Bagley tonight, 6,100?
He's the other half of my the cover of my playbook today. Yeah. The minutes have been really good for Marvin Bagley. Even in a blowout, 28 minutes against the Clippers where he doubles. Now he had he accrued 0 other stats, and that's not the best.
But not the norm for him. He usually gives you some defense and whatnot. So
not the norm. And the norm has been another shift, right? Like 5 to 6 extra minutes, where he's the 3 games prior, 34, 33, 33 minutes. He's been about almost a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy this year with the Wizards. And again, it doesn't hurt that John Collins is the only center and Yurtseven is the backup. It doesn't hurt Walker Kessler isn't there either. Like Bagley can space a little bit here and there. He's just a really good fantasy point per minute guy. And
always has been,
yeah, always has been. So, and you look, here's another team that is getting boatload of ownership, right? Like we talked about Kuzma's ownership. Tyus Jones is 26%. Pools and Denny's have come down quite a bit. Bagley's 8%. Like, I get it. It's not like Marvin Bagley's out there giving you 40s every night, and you're like, well, you're getting a guy giving you 40 every night. No. But also, the highest 2 rostered centers of the night are Andre Drummond and Omer Yurtseven. Like, those are your 2 highest centers. So people don't know what they're doing at center tonight. So why not take a shot?
They're just, Yurtseven, they're punting. Drummond's not really a punt.
No, he's not.
You're spending $5,200 on Andre Drummond here. I get it. The recent games have obviously been very good. They've had a need to go double big in those games. They don't have a need to go double big in this game, and that might be catching some people off guard. But what if Chicago does send out a double big lineup tonight?
No Caruso, and they're like, screw it, why not? Let's just see what happens.
Right. And now they're causing a size mismatch on Sacramento. Now that means Vuk is on Harrison Barnes.
They would have to put one of them on Barnes, because he's the most standstill, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't have him chase Keegan Murray around. You can't have him chase Kevin Huerter around. So like, gotta be Harrison Barnes.
It's got to be Vuk on Barnes, and then it'd be Drummond on Sabonis.
Or vice versa, whatever you decide, whatever.
Can Drummond run out to the perimeter? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think either scenario is like a good one.
Yeah, I feel like
you know
I
what
give
this
a little
is?
bit more athleticism nod to Vucevic here, but I don't know.
This is an Olnarat Bitum game. That's what this is.
Yeah, Bitum. Yeah, it could be.
I mean, like you said, the production's been great. Anytime he's been on the floor for extended run, it just quite literally the three teams you're like, this double big would work against would be the three teams in a row. They quite literally played. Detroit goes double big, Cleveland goes double big, Milwaukee goes double big.
And the Celtics, if like Drew Holiday gets ruled out,
because if anybody's out, right? If anybody's out, right? They just
then they go Horford Zinger.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but like you can count on one. Minnesota, that's probably your fourth team.
Yeah,
that's it. Like, but that's Towns on the perimeter. Like, that's it. Like across the whole NBA. So like I get it. I'm just not as enamored.
Miami with Jovic, maybe.
Miami with Jovic, but he's also like ball handler, perimeter guy too. So either way, 5,200 for Drummond. If you get there, salute. But like I'm taking half the field's ownership for Bagley.
If Giannis gets ruled out, how many people play Bobby Portis tonight?
A lot of people.
Good chalk, bad chalk.
Good chalk. He started for Doc. Like when Doc first got there,
yep.
Doc's first coach game was the Portland game, the 31st.
Yep.
And then Giannis didn't play the next three games. And Portis started 31, 36, 31 minutes in all three of those games.
He's good. I mean, he's always been a really high volume player. So
yeah, he's good. So I would say that's obvious news. Now that game is at 8, so we should have that in time. Like that news should come out early. But yeah, like I would probably pivot all my Bagley shares.
I think it helped Memphis Brooklyn starting at 7:30 because no one's playing that game. So
it's a very low
for everybody. The slate basically starts at 8 o'clock on a late swap slate. Thankfully, so you can kind of wait it out and wait till 8 to really make your moves here. So
for the record, I would pivot my Bagley shares to Portis if he was starting. To be honest, like just like I not to say I wouldn't play them both either. Because you could play Portis at power forward.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, if that came down to like a scenario where I was in center and I had 6,100, I would, Portis, no Giannis over Bagley would probably be the move.
Okay. Let's build a lineup here. Where we have Kuzma and Bagley, you said on the cover. So,
yep.
Bagley, Kuzma.
And then Utah value.
Yeah. Hendricks. Forward.
So here's my I would say THT or Sensible. I would say THT at small forward.
Okay.
Because if Sensible is starting, you can pivot to him there.
Okay. Next move.
Utah. More Utah.
So do you play Sexton?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sexton's in play regardless, right? Like that's a play regardless of Keyonte George because he's playing 30 plus minutes. They're down Lauri Markkanen, like they need offense.
LeBron in the util?
I'm good with LeBron in the util for sure.
Like this is a point guard, shooting guard. You mentioned Schroeder.
Keyonte George. More of that game.
Okay, I wasn't sure what is usually we the midday downgrades are not friendly to us here, but that's fine. $5,100 then for a shooting guard.
Sexton, and then I know you have him
for a guard.
Yeah, I was seeing if there's anything that we
could go down to Clarkson. We'll save a little money.
Yeah, do the Clarkson scenario, and then I think that puts you on like Jordan Goodwin or something. 100 off Schroeder. It's Jordan Goodwin in that price range.
Clarkson dual positional. He is. We can move him to guard, LeBron to forward.
Yeah, that works too.
So I'll go LeBron, Tucker.
My only.
Think he's not gonna? Well,
I think LeBron's gonna play. I just think that there's obvious value to having him in the util because if he doesn't play,
Yeah. So we gotta make a decision, I guess. Then
I would rather just do the lineup we had with Jordan Goodwin probably at like guard.
Okay.
And then you can move, but actually you can move move Goodwin to point guard, and then Keyonte to, just in case Keyonte doesn't play.
Sure. $200 left over. Goodwin, Clarkson, THT, Kuzma, Bagley, George, Hendricks, and James. That's your full Utah-Washington stack with a one-off Memphis and LeBron James there for everybody who is looking. The Prince wants to know our favorite FanDuel center for tonight. Well, the Prince, as we talked about, you are stuck with just 4 games here this evening. But fortunately, that game does include Washington and Utah. So Bagley at 69, Collins at 68, both very appealing options there at the center position for us. If we found out that Giannis was out, Bobby Portis is $6,500, we'd certainly consider the pivot there off of Bagley. So I think any 3 of those guys at center tonight fit the bill. What do you think here, James?
I would toss Brook Lopez in there, 63, if there's no Giannis. And if you want to punt, Omer Yurtseven, $3,700.
Sure. So there's an example lineup for everybody here tonight. Again, 7:30 roster lock this evening. You can check that out. And one last time here, if you haven't done so already, join our NBA Pick'em contest here. Sign up for free. Get $10 when you register your account, fanslam.com/pick'em. It's a $3 contest. They're giving you $10 free, no credit card required. So again, scan the QR code or go to fanslam.com/pick'em. Play in the Pick'em contest with myself and James Grande every day over on Better Edge. Today's games for the Pick'em contest is for the Clippers Bucks game. So come join us, pick some, make some picks. 6 picks, top 3 get paid over on Better Edge. Playbooks out, roster locks at 7:30. Everybody, good luck. Find us in Discord. Get us on Twitter. We'll see you tomorrow.